Did you know that Godzilla actually has voice actors? Of course, the iconic Godzilla roar is not the result of a human voice, instead the manipulated sound of a leather glove coated in pine tar rubbing against the strings of a contrabass, overlaid with various animal roars. However, over 70 years, a lot of different interpretations of the King of the Monsters have been produced, and variations of that original roar aren't always used. Unfortunately, the Godzilla franchise has plenty of lost media, with many examples being short TV series that acted as promotional material. These were naturally designed to be far more comedic, with the kaiju themselves unafraid to start talking, so they're where a lot of these examples would have come from. Hopefully Toho will one day unearth these relics and put them on YouTube, but until then, this will have to remain just a taste. Funnily enough, the very first of these departures came from a core movie with 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan. This movie features Godzilla and Anguirus talking to each other, and in the Japanese original, their dialogue was represented with speech bubbles. However, because this would make exporting to other territories more difficult, necessitating animating new speech bubbles in the new language, foreign dubs would simply dub the monsters. This was how Ted Thomas became, potentially, the very first person to voice Godzilla.
Hey, Godzilla! Something funny going on. You better check.
Toho then decided to never do this again. That was for the Americans. Beginning in 1978, Hanna-Barbera began airing a Godzilla cartoon. They got the license to Godzilla, but absolutely nothing else. No other characters, no other monsters, they weren't even allowed to use Godzilla's roar and had to improvise. And thus Ted Cassidy became the second Ted voicing Godzilla. Sadly, he passed away while the show was still airing, making it one of his final roles. It seemingly didn't impact production, since they could simply reuse the same stock sounds for the full run. This would be a trend going forward, with another actor famously in Hanna-Barbera's stable, Frank Welker. Frank is well known for his incredible vocal range, contributing a lot to royalty-free sound libraries. Those stock sound effects would be used for a whole host of projects, several of which were Godzilla. His voice would be used for Godzilla in Godzilla 98 alongside Scott Gershon and Gary A. Hecker, Godzilla Jr. in Godzilla the Series, Zilla in Godzilla Final Wars, and Godzilla in the American dub of Godzilla 2000. And before any of this, he happened to be used for Godzilla parodies, such as Gollyzilla in an episode of Pinky and the Brain. It wouldn't be his last appearance in the Godzilla franchise either. The generic roars he used for the Sharptooth in The Land Before Time, by pure coincidence, happened to get recycled for the new monsters Crystalac and Obsidius in Godzilla Unleashed. By my count, that makes the Sharptooth a kaiju. But that's just on this side of the Pacific. Over in his native homeland of Japan, as far as we know, his first voiced appearance was Adventure Godzillaland, a short live-action variety show that aired late 1992 to promote Godzilla vs. Mothra. This series is completely lost, but the second season from late 1993 for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 has one episode surviving. Now, Wikizilla says that Godzilla was voiced by Akira Iriyama, but I don't know if that's just not in this episode because I'm not so certain he ever speaks. The two times it could be him sound like dubbed narration from one of the human actors, but there's no subtitles and I can't be sure. What I do know is, this second season added animated segments, which would serve as the basis for Get Going Godzillaland, an educational OVA series that released from 1994 to 1996. Here, now that the focus was a cartoon aimed at very young children, it only made sense to age the monsters down and give them more cutesy voices. Godzilla would be voiced by Yuko Mita. There's also a live-action segment with Naoki Bando.
僕が怪獣王と呼ばれるずーっと前の話、足し算をどうやって覚えたかって話だよ。
This general format of comedic Godzilla projects would continue over 20 years later with Godziban, a web puppet series featuring a wide array of the kaiju, but focusing on Godzilla and his family. Godzilla is voiced by Yumiko Takahashi.
人間たちの世界ではもうすぐクリスマスってのがあるんだって。
Similarly, around the same time, Toho had been taking cues from Godzillaland for another cartoony design for Godzilla that could be used as a mascot character, leading to the creation of Chibi Godzilla. He would be the star of the web series I'm Home, Chibi Godzilla, where he was voiced by Serika Hiromatsu.
おかえりさとみ。
The later Chibi Godzilla Raids Again replaces her with Jun Fukuyama.
僕はゴジラオタクだからわかる。これはお父さんが映画で戦ってたメカゴジラが使う強力な技だよ。
Though Chibi Godzilla is said to be the son of Godzilla, so it's not really the same character. Which I guess means it's time for us to go into...
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles, you know.
Sure, we can go through the other Godzillas as well. We mentioned Zilla and Godzilla Jr. after all. Unlike Godzilla vs. Gigan, the Japanese version of All Monsters Attacked had Minilla voiced by Midori Uchiyama. Godzillaland had a female Godzilla named Gojirin, played by Akemi Okamura.
ゴジラが悪いんじゃないの。早く仲直りしなさい。
Chibi Manila is also pink and female and voiced by Maya Uchida.
嫌です。知らない人にはついていきません。どうしてお父さんが直接来ないんですか？
And Godziban has versions of Manila and Little Godzilla, voiced by Junko Kubota and Hideyuki Kobayashi, respectively.
シャフジーなら何でも知ってるもんね。わーい、行こう行こう。
There's also Grandpa Zilla, but unfortunately, Godziban episodes on YouTube don't have cast listings, so his voice actor is unknown.
この町の中にわしらゴジラ一族の子供が迷い込んでおるのじゃ。
Uncle Zilla and Kamaichi, based on Shin Godzilla and Kamata-kun, are unvoiced. Yes, I'd bet that when you thought about people who have voiced Godzilla, you wouldn't have expected he'd have 11 voice actors that we know of. Possibly this is a topic that could use some more research and discovery. Thank you for watching this video. I'd like to give a special thanks to Wikizilla for being the main source for a lot of the information and assets I've used. A lot of this stuff is so obscure there's basically no information elsewhere.